I don't understand the distinction between God the Father and God the Son. I pray to God the Father, and I don't know why, like a lot of the people I know in my life, they pray to Jesus. And I've built quite the relationship praying to God and trying to get to know him. And I don't really know why I need Jesus.
Yeah. Well, thank you, first and foremost, for your transparency to ask that question. I think there's a level that we can all relate to what you just said, in the sense that there are aspects of who God is that we will never truly grasp. And thank goodness that our salvation is not based on a theological exam. Because I think I myself would personally fail. I'm not going to speak for everybody in the room.
I can vouch for that.
Okay, thank you. It's an Ipswich thing. I don't want to... But I think, you know, what we see within Scripture, and we have to be honest with what we see within Scripture, is that what we see described is that God is complex within his unity.
Yeah.
And that continually we have statements that are repeated. Statements like Deuteronomy 34:6, which is sometimes referred to as the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one God. And this is a statement that has been repeated since the time of Moses to modern Orthodox Jews today, every morning and every evening. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one God. And yet, we have these examples of God describing himself in a complex nature, that he's ruling and reigning in heaven, but he is in a physical presence on the top of the Ark of the Covenant, on the mercy seat. And we have stories like we see in Genesis chapter 18, where two angels and one individual identified as Yahweh, as the God of the Bible, shows up to Abraham's tent, and they dialogue with Abraham about what's going to transpire at Sodom and Gomorrah. The two angels leave to go deal with Abraham's relatives in Sodom and Gomorrah, and then the extended conversation between Abraham and God eventually has God leaving in some sort of physical form. And then it has this very interesting passage in Genesis 19 where it says, and then Yahweh in heaven rained fire and brimstone from Yahweh on earth. What? There's only one God. There isn't two Yahwehs. So what's going on? I would posit that if God was fully comprehensible, if you could understand all the intricacies of who God is within both his being and his character, it's probably a God that you made up. That as we are complex, God is even infinitely more complex. And there is an aspect that theologians talk about in what's sometimes described as understanding and comprehending, in that I can understand when the Bible talks about eternity as a long period of time in my kind of finite thinking. But what does time without end mean? I can't comprehend that. I can't wrap my head around that. But what do we see communicated to about who God is that the Father is described as Yahweh God in his honors, attributes, his names, his deeds, and he's given the seat of the Almighty. Jesus is described and given the honors, the attributes, the names, the deeds, and the seat of the Almighty. And the Spirit is given the honors, the attributes, the names, the deeds, and the seat of the Almighty. It spells out HANDS, by the way. It's an acronym. I did that so you could remember it. I didn't come up with that. Two brilliant scholars named Rob Bowman and Ed Komachowski came up with that in a book that you're all going to read after this called The Incarnate Christ and His Critics. But what we get from that is that we see this happening, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit all being described with those qualities of Yahweh. And so we say, okay, there's one being of God. Being describes what you are. But there are three persons. Person describes who you are. This chair has being, right? It exists. I didn't walk over and say, excuse me, Mr. Chair, can I sit on you? Do you mind that? Right? Because it doesn't have personhood. But it has being. Don't believe me, I'll throw it at you and you can find out. And yet, yeah, right. And yet, Dan is a being. He's a human being. But he is also a person. He's Dan Patterson, right? He's one in being and one in person. And as the creator of us as human beings who inhabit a personhood, I would posit that even in our finite understanding that we cannot truly comprehend, that the God of creation, I think it would merit that he is more complex than that. And even in all the things that we cannot and do not understand about the God of the Bible, we still can come to this text and say, what I see here is describing something that maybe I don't fully understand, but that I can submit myself to humbly in saying, I don't understand all the details. But what I do see is something that is wonderful and that is beautiful, and that the Father sends the Son, and the Son goes willingly of his own accord, and he dies in our place through the power of the Spirit in order to give us life. That the message of the gospel and salvation is inherently Trinitarian. It is the three operating co-equally and co-eternally in a set of living, loving relationships. And even if I don't understand how that parses out in every way, I can submit myself to it because I believe that this is true.